with expertise in infrastructure design, implementation, and governance. He specializes in identity security, including PAM, vulnerability management, ZTA, and identity lifecycle management. His research has focused on self-sovereign identity, or SSI, and its impact on the future of digital identity. So all the way from Austin, Texas, I would like to welcome Dr. Morgan Reece.
Thank you. So, identity, the last frontier. Why is the future taking so long? It's like we've been talking about moving forward and having advancements, all these things on identity. So what's taking so long? Well, one, it's just a quick bio on me. I have a PhD in computer science, cybersecurity, and specializing in identity security with self-sovereign identity. But I've recently started a company that's focused on cybersecurity for nonprofits and missions and ministries. If you're curious, go check out towerguardian.org. And then, along with all that, 30 years experience in semiconductor, financial services, healthcare, and most recently, government. So, yeah, so let's see if this actually works. Let's go next. Let's see. Yep.
A road diverges in the desert. Lexus. The road you're on, John Anderton, is the one less traveled. A nightfall of diamonds.
Ciao, Johnny. You can move the old-fashioned way. Century 21 provides gourmet cuisine. John Anderton! You could use a Guinness right about now. Escape from it all. Stressed out, John Anderton?
Get away, John Anderton. Forget your troubles. It's true.
John Anderton.
Hello, Mr. Yakamoto. Welcome back to the Gap. How those assorted tank tops work out for you?
Mr. Yakamoto.
There we go. So, Minority Report, very good movie, very interesting. Apparently, there was a lot of research they did, talking to futurists about what the future would look like. And apparently, iris scans are going to be very, very common for identity. Not too far off from what we're seeing. I think it's amazing the technology that if it does get that far to where on the fly you're walking down and you get a customized advertisement for you personally, that right now is a good time for a Guinness. So, okay. But there is this promise of the utopian future. So the environment changes as you enter. It customized to you. The lighting, the thermostat, the music. Purchases, they just happen. You walk up, go into a store, grab stuff, walk out. Nothing to do for you manually, but it just automatically identifies the items you're purchasing and deducts or just charges your account. And what's with my kind of work in healthcare, it was always one of those things of how do we manage health records well? The future will be automatic. Your health records are with you. They are available. This actually pushes kind of going to that less paperwork. Having to fill out all this paperwork at the doctor's office, always fill it out. Nope. It's automatically just going to be uploaded and done. And so, but how do we get there? There are a lot of standards that must be put into place, defined and everything. Infrastructure, a lot of infrastructure. If you look at the the infrastructure right now, there's a huge focus on AI infrastructure. Identity infrastructure, depending on the scope you were talking about, that infrastructure is pretty large. Buy-in from businesses and industries. And then there is the acceptance of what the people will actually use and what they want to use and kind of buy into themselves. So while that's all being done for the infrastructure and protocols and everything being set, a number of software companies, software and hardware companies are coming about and looking at things. Oh, keep on forgetting to do that. There we go. Sorry about that. Looking at here. Number of hardware and software companies are doing things that are looking at the decentralized identity and self-sovereign in a microcosm, in a corporate sense. So you got Ping ID. They've got a product called Neo, Ping Neo. Good product. Talked with them a number of times about they're actually pushing it. They don't have 100% internally deployed yet, but they are really, I know a couple of guys on the product team that are pushing pretty hard for them to adopt it themselves internally so that they can start kind of pitching it out and kind of making sure, kind of seeing how it proliferates for their customers. Authenticate just actually attended a presentation by their CEO on their product. And he mentioned decentralized and going self-sovereign as well. That is their focus of where they're going. Microsoft, of course, they've always got a play in this. Okta, the king of identity, external authentication and all, and many others. But none of them are really pushing for that global proliferation. So, where do we start? The recommendation I have is that in the U.S., we start at the corporate level. And even at corporate level, you look at that from a smaller set of the population and not at the whole corporation, but let's look at the microcosm of that. Instead of having it driven by government and looking at this digital, like government digital identity, look at it from a corporate sense. So that when, well, let's just say I'm not 100% sure about how successful a government run organization, technology organization will do. Having worked with a number of government agencies, what I saw was a lot of the technology and a lot of that technology knowledge was external. They were coming in with contractors, and the internal were project managers, dealt with them at that level. So looking at developing the ecosystems. The challenge of the ecosystem are the digital credentials. And you'll see that these companies that are looking at a corporate level are managing their own credentials. They are not going, they can incorporate, I've seen certain situations where they can incorporate, but what they're really doing is looking at their own, managing their own credentials and not looking at it from a global, what I would call an externally verifiable credential. From it like a driver's license or a passport or something like that. And then the technical standards. From a broad proliferation, the wallet standard is really important because that's where your credentials are going to be stored and credit cards and things like that. The idea on the wallet is, well, everybody who has a smartphone got a wallet. So Apple Wallet, you can put credentials in there and everything. That standard hasn't been finalized yet, and actually Apple hasn't adopted it yet. So those are coming. So there are early development like Apple had. They're ahead on the wallet, but they are actually kind of slowing progress in that sense because they aren't on the standard. So let's look at the corporate identity transition. And it is a slow, drawn-out process. It is slow mainly because there's lack of buy-in from leadership. There's technical, so the technical leaders look at things at a macro level. These technologies and everything are looking at it to some extent for the executives, it's more at a micro level. So how do we translate things into that macro level for the business leader? Technical integrations. While there are a lot of standards out there, everything is not cookie cutter as it is right now, or as of yet. And then user acceptance. There's getting, say, resistance from change from users. So how do we get started? With this, it really is defining that champion. So the champion is that executive leader who has the clout, who has enough clout to actually drive organizational change. If there's a hindrance, if there is, to some extent, some slow acceptance by a group, there's got to be an executive leader that's going to say, no, forget it, you stop worrying about these things, let's move forward, make sure they move forward. That is, in my opinion, that is the most critical. You've got to have that. Got to have the champion with the charter and then enough clout to drive this. The scope, you define that scope and make sure you define success. And then architectural frameworks, of course, these are all standard kind of project management things that you pull in that are defined on change of identity. And then you define those requirements. So the functional and non-functional requirements on this, on identity change, are critical, especially when you're dealing with a large number of groups. And that's why you focus on those small groups first, define those, and as it grows, you're able to kind of focus on those areas of, you might say, contention on the implementation for functional and non-functional. Okay. So, with every project, there are going to be hindrances, and there will be battles. Expect the battle. So, most of the people that you're going to encounter are going to be, well, less than excited to make that change. So basically with the lovers of the status quo, those who don't want to make that change, then there are the leaders who've been left out. They aren't going to be, their buy-in is going to be limited because they've been left out. They're, I guess, might say feelings are hurt. And then legacy tech owners. So we ran into a situation where we were deploying a new MFA solution, and there was a team that was managing the RSA tokens, and that was going by the wayside, new implementation, and there was a whole team that was doing that. Not a whole lot of buy-in from this team that was basically their whole functionality was going away. So there are those hindrances that you'll encounter, and that's why the champion actually is so important to manage these situations like this where it gets to a corporate level. So, how to win over the naysayers? Over-communicate. There's a lot of, say, information on change management. So there is no way to over-communicate. Actually, the adage is once people get tired or start getting tired of hearing your message, you've actually begun to communicate. And so what do? You keep on talking about it. And so you go on those roadshows, you go and pitch and show what a better environment, better life this is going to be for this. And give them the user experience and talk about the workflows. their workflows are important to them. So that you have to make sure that those are talked about. And then also defining that pilot group. The pilot group, and finding that to where there's a team of people who are actually supportive and who will provide good feedback, good and bad, about the implementation, but also that they are looking to help the project be successful. So the impact of changing your identity solution. So you have your project, you have your champion, but there is the individual in the company that is a real decision maker. So being in healthcare and doing change, and we knew that the CMO, Chief Medical Officer, was that decision maker. We could plan and put everything in place and everything, but the CMO was the one who said whether or not things were going to happen. Whatever industry is, whatever you're doing, I always liken it to who's over the revenue generation. What organization actually drives revenue? Identify that, move up the chain, and that's going to be your decision maker. Because there will be downtime, there will be outage, there will be impact. How do you manage that? How do you set expectations and get buy-in? You got your champion working with that executive owner of that team, of the revenue generation. So the other thing you'll run into, I mean, we did in our change at the healthcare company, and that was the idea of integrations, and very particular integrations, especially with EMRs. We had certain government requirements, had to be FIPS 140-2 compliant, unique implementation, and so these are going to impact that. These are going to impact your project. So there's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts. So really having a good project manager. And I know I throw this up just as an example. It's like there's nothing there, you can't read it. I couldn't read it. But having a project manager that you're following, that manage your process, manage your integrations, manage the relationships and everything. If you don't have a PMO, make sure you have somebody who owns the PM process. So you want to make sure that you are integrated with that and they are following that fairly well. I would recommend a technical PMO or PM on this, especially when you're dealing with very kind of technical integrations and different teams that are coordinating on a technical level. It makes it a lot easier. They don't have to be experts in cybersecurity, but they definitely would be helpful just to have someone who is understanding of technology. Okay. Once you get done, celebrate. You're done. I go back to a quote from Max Dupree, a business author I really like, and he says, leaders' first responsibility is to define reality. At the end, to say thank you, and in the middle is to overcome problems or overcome hindrances. So, at the end, gotta say thank you, celebrate your accomplishment. So, all well and good, but what is next? We've got our identity. We got, say, let's call decentralized identity deployed at the corporate level. So we're talking about proliferation. There we go. So we're talking about proliferation in the company, and then what's it look like going beyond the company. So the idea for self-sovereign is that the internet is missing the identity layer. It has no in general, you can traverse the internet in anonymity, which is good and bad. There's good and bad in that. The prospect of decentralized identity and credentials and everything, going through that, there is value in that, and there's control, and there's a lot of things that come along with that. So 2 images here. Well, there we go. I'm always one behind. So you've got the digital ID, that one, the one with the phone. That is UK's Brit card. And then just a tag for UN's digital ID. So what's going to be gained when we talk about global digital identity? And each organization has their arguments. The UK wants to tackle illegal immigration. The UN is like boosting financial inclusion. United States, travel safety with real ID. Reduced fraud and leakage in India with their digital ID. There's convenience of transactions across the board. And then there's basically, with the security of digital identity, very, very little identity theft, if any. KYC, AML, know your customer, and anti-money laundering. So these are values and things that I think everybody can get behind. But what's next? What is it? We're not going down this is not going to unplug you, per se. Let's just look at this and take off the rose-colored glasses. So the utopian future, easy access to services. You got convenience of information going far and wide. Less paperwork, right? No more filling out forms. They had just automatically filled in online. One of my research partners, he was working with one of the states about utilizing self-sovereign identity so that across the board, any forms they filled in for the state were actually just pulled the information automatically. So when they were talking about working across different departments in the state, they were already known, all the information was already there. And then there's the integration of online personas. You've got banking, financial, healthcare, and social media. These are, a lot of people spend a lot of their time living, to some extent, Second Life almost, or just on the internet. So a lot of people have their friends, that's their majority of friends they have online. So is there a dystopian future for digital identity? Well, we're not sure yet. We don't know. We do know China, the UK, India, and EU all have a digital identity. So, do we lose privacy, anonymity, autonomy, control, and to some extent travel with the introduction of digital identity? The Prime Minister of England said by the end of this parliamentary session, they will be putting in something called the Brit card. Showed a picture of it to you before. His statement was, you will not be able to work in the UK without the Brit card. Now, the argument is, a lot of illegal aliens, they don't want working in the UK, therefore, let's institute this, and we'll be able to say, okay, this is great. It's a great argument for it. Wonderful. Let's see. This is a screenshot of a scan in China. They do have their identity, digital identity. The numbers you see up there are not credit scores. That's their social credit score. So if you speak negatively about the country, your social credit score goes down. If you jaywalk, or if you break a rule, crime, whatever, social credit score goes down. I haven't heard how you get that back, how you can earn social credit again. That's yet to be seen, I guess. But I think China is the furthest along in implementing full, societal digital identity and moving things completely online for whatever. The interesting thing about this, it's all facial recognition. Across China, there are cameras at every street corner, basically doing this, watching you, identifying who you are. It was interesting, I saw in England, they were putting up cameras like that, and I saw a number of people tearing those down. Vandals not wanting those things in there. So a little bit of backlash in England on this. Not sure. There have been some incidences in China, I believe, but a very authoritarian government in China kind of keeps that under control. And then this was a new one. All these three instances were all this month, all in September. So, State Bank of Vietnam has shut down 86 million bank accounts because there was no, their digital, it was their biometric, their biometrics didn't match up, or they didn't have biometric matching on their account. So they failed, I guess you might say, the Know Your Customer or anti-money laundering, and completely cut it out, shut those accounts down. I didn't get a dollar value on what was shut down on that, but you got 86 million accounts. That's a bit of money. I don't know who gained that money, if it was the government or not. So the question is, considering all this, what do we do? Personally, with my research in self-sovereign, I think it is the path forward for identity. It will streamline in the corporate world very effectively. It is a great user experience. So I think that's it. I think beyond that, I'm not sure that from a global sense that this is a great path. My biggest question is going to be how you manage and who controls the credentials. Those within your digital identity, at a global sense, you're taking your driver's license, passport, and all that into your wallet. The question is, who really controls that? Because at the flip of a switch, your driver's license can be shut down. You can flip a switch and, yep, your passport is deactivated or canceled. So every credential that is gone, if you move to digital, there is the idea you have control, but you have as much control to share it, but not to control its, I guess, say, the validity. The validity of that account still remains with the corporate. Let's see. I'm sorry. There's the Vietnam stuff. And there's that. So, so your credentials being in the in your wallet, you have it, you control it, but it can be deactivated flip of a switch. You can share certain information if it's still active, but if it's deactivated, it's gone. So there is some real concern that I have looking kind of deeply into this and thinking about what could be, whether good or bad. So that's it. Any questions?
So I've been an advocate for digital identity for quite a while.
Yeah.
Worked during COVID to try to get digital wallets out because we taught people the best thing to do during a pandemic is to carry health data unencoded on you all the time. And since then, I've been asking my friends who are still in the SSI space, what happened? Why is this movement, it's lost a lot of momentum. So thank you for talking about this. When you talk about the employers, why they should use external identities, I didn't hear a why. Do you have an answer today for why should an employer use somebody else's when they verify their employee is who they say they are? What do they get extra?
So from a self-sovereign perspective, you're looking at authentication. So the accounts still remain with the corporation, but the authentication, that account is associated with an external identity, and that authentication is associated with that external identity. And the value of that is, one, let's take a look at a specific case of onboarding. There's a need to verify identity before onboarding. There's a huge, I mean, right now, you look at the number of cases of North Koreans who have taken on jobs and used whatever deep fake or whatever kind of technology to obfuscate their identity and pretend to be somebody else. Having that verifiable credential and having that decentralized identity control and being able to verify identity immediately streamlines that onboarding process. So the biggest challenge, you talk about hindrances of adoption, one I've seen that's a couple organizations have talked about has been the management of, you might say, the management of the cryptography of the wallet. Right now, it's very simple. Right, you're dealing with just your Apple Wallet. As we add technology and kind of credential on top of that, are we going to complicate the wallet to where it is not something that we'll call a grandmother, per se, or somebody in there, someone who is not tech savvy, can they manage that? And I've seen arguments that that's one of the reasons to slow adoption, is that there's not a tech savvy kind of populace, majority populace to do that.
Any other questions?
Thank you for your talk and congratulations on your PhD. Can you just give a brief overview? I don't fully understand the triangle that's related to the decentralized identity issuance.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have issuers like, let's just call it the government. You've got a holder, yourself, and you got your third party. So that third party is going to query issuer is going to issue, and he's going to register that credential with a credential registry. You get the credential as well, and then as you authenticate to a third party, website of or corporate infrastructure, then that corporate infrastructure will go and query the registry to verify the validity of that credential. Once that's verified, comes back, and then it authorizes your access. So talking with Ping the other day, they were saying that they aren't running their own registry. They are actually using a protocol to query validity of credentials. I'm trying to remember, it's like Digim or forget what the protocol they were using, but they aren't building out their own their credential registry. But they do have their authentication methodology is trending toward that decentralized and self-sovereign.
So then, do you see the future of this working like certificate authorities, or will it be governments that are issuing these?
So credentials are always going to be some authority. The value of the credential is coming from an authoritative source. So could you have an identity and a credential coming from a company? Absolutely. Insurance companies, insurance cards, that can be a credential and that could get registered and queried and all, right? As I said, it will stay. There will be a market for the credentials coming from governments, but I believe there will be secondaries as well, like corporations. I heard gym memberships that were wanting to do it. There's value in it, and what was the other one? Yeah, lost my train there. Yeah.
So in that example, you mentioned expiration or cancel. I'm fumbling that word, but in that sense, the authority, we can just use that term, would be the one who performs that, and if it's not issued by the government, then the government will have to contact the authority to cancel the identity in that event. You see where I'm going?
No,
with
I
that?
understand. So okay, let's look at Real ID.
Okay.
Real ID is the U.S.'s, we'll call it, identity database. Texas, I think, has gone 100%. You can't get a driver's license in Texas without Real ID. There are some states where you can request not having a Real ID. The TSA website says you can't fly without it. Okay. So it's not TSA who owns that credential, it's the state of Texas. So for some reason, if they decide to early terminate, there's an expiration on your driver's license. If there's some reason that you early terminate, that they would want to early terminate that, they can do that, and they're basically preventing you from flying. So it still goes back to the issuer. Not, and we'll call, let's say, if there is, let's see, I think it was a year and a half ago that CISA or the DHS put out a request for 6 companies to develop digital wallet proposals. 3 U.S. and 3 not U.S. I thought the not U.S. Companies were kind of an interesting choice. Slovenia was one country. I was like, very interesting. So, but they were creating a digital wallet. Okay, so they're with that if they go to the open wallet standard that there is a proposal, I'm not sure it's finalized yet. So you're not dealing with the wallet. The wallet's just a holder, kind of like wallet, have in your pocket. It's the credentials that matter. So it's the issuer that really has all the control in that. They define the expiration and the termination of it.
Thank
So
you.
it's a very, very kind of interesting state we're in right now. Especially, I was completely flabbergasted when I heard the Prime Minister say, "Yep, you can't work in the UK without the Brit card." Okay. Interesting because I know a lot of people. Actually, I spent 6 months working in England and a while back, and I'm like, okay, does that mean I have to get a Brit card? Is it anybody who works? Is it UK citizens? How does that work? We got health care because we had Social Security with the US, and we kind of got lumped in because it was kind of an agreement between the US and the UK. What happens now? What changes? It's, as I said, those 3 instances I showed you of these let's see. The Vietnam, I mean, the date on that's the 22nd. That just happened last week. And they have full digital identity on that. China's been going on for so long, it's not news. And then, let's see, I think Friday of last week is when that came up, the Brit card. So things are changing fast. Things are moving fast from a global sense of digital identity. I think it's interesting to talk about what the U.S. is kind of pushing on. They are, more than anything, talking about cryptocurrency. The driver for digital wallets and digital identity, I think, is going to come from cryptocurrency. They've already got the database, I mean, for the driver's license, and how they turn that into a U.S. ID, I'm not sure. So, okay. I guess that's it. Any other questions, though? Happy to talk more about it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reece. So this concludes today's Track 7. Thank you all for attending and engaging with the sessions and the conversation with Dr. Reece. Please head to the General Assembly for our closing keynote featuring Robert R. Snake Hansen, one of the very first Houston SecCon speakers from 15 years ago. You won't want to miss this. We look forward to tomorrow, day 2, with the exhibit hall opening at 8 a.m. and Jeremiah Grossman kicking off the day at 9 a.m. in the General Assembly. So it should be another great day tomorrow for learning and networking.